While an entire nation was starving, God sent birds to deliver breakfast to one man, hiding in the desert. 3 years no rain, no food, no hope. And God told one man to hide in the desert and wait. But here's the part nobody talks about. God didn't send an angel. He didn't send a prophet. He didn't send a friend. He sent ravens, unclean birds, scavengers, the last creatures anyone would expect God to use. And they showed up every single morning with bread and meat in their beaks. This is one of the strangest miracles in the entire Bible. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why it matters for whatever you're going through right now. Stay with me, because there's a detail near the end of this story that will change how you see your waiting season forever. To understand why God sent ravens, you need to understand the world Elijah walked into. Israel was a mess. King Ahab was on the throne. And if you've ever read about corrupt leaders, Ahab makes them all look like amateurs. The Bible literally says he did more evil than every king before him. Every single one. And his wife, Jezebel, she didn't just tolerate idol worship. She funded it. She built temples to a false god called Baal. She put hundreds of false prophets on the government payroll. Baal was worshipped as the god of rain, the god of storms, the god of fertility and provision. So when Israel bowed to Baal, they were essentially saying, we don't need the God of Abraham. We've found someone who provides for us now. And into that world, into that corruption, into that spiritual darkness, one man walks up to King Ahab and says 6 words that change everything. His name was Elijah, a Tishbite from a small town nobody had heard of. No royal blood, no political connections, no army, just a man with a word from God. And that one declaration shut the sky over an entire nation. No rain for 3.5 years. Now here's what most people miss. God didn't just start the drought. He had a plan for the drought. And the plan started with one strange command. The word of the Lord came to Elijah and said, leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith Ravine. East of the Jordan, you will drink from the brook, and I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. Let that land for a second. God could have kept Elijah in the city, could have given him a platform, could have made him a public hero for standing up to Ahab. Instead, God said, hide, go to a ravine alone. No audience, no applause, no visibility. Drink from a brook that's about to dry up, and wait for birds to bring you breakfast. And here's the thing, Elijah obeyed. He didn't argue. He didn't negotiate. He didn't say, God, I just confronted a king. I earned some visibility. Maybe I should stay and lead the resistance. No, he went to the brook, and he did what the Lord told him. And the ravens brought him bread and meat every morning and every evening. Now think about this. Ravens are scavengers. In Jewish law, they were considered unclean. They eat dead things. They don't share. They don't deliver. But God commanded them, and they obeyed. Let that speak to you today. The thing you think is too broken, too unlikely, too unclean to bless you, God can command it. He doesn't need your approval of the delivery method. He just needs your trust in his timing. But the brook was about to dry up, and that's where the story takes a turn most people never see coming. Some time later, the brook dried up because there had been no rain in the land. Read that again. The brook, God's own provision, dried up. The ravens stopped coming. The water disappeared. The place where God told Elijah to go no longer sustained him. Now, if you were Elijah, what would you think? Did I hear God wrong? Did he forget about me? Was this all a mistake? Here's what most people do. When the brook dries up in their life, they panic. They go back to old ways. They stop praying. They question everything. But here's what Elijah did. He waited. He didn't leave until God gave the next instruction. And that detail, that one decision to stay until God spoke again, is the thing I promised you at the beginning of this video would change how you see your waiting season. Because what happened next was even more impossible than ravens delivering groceries. God told Elijah, go to Zarephath of Sidon. I have commanded a widow there to provide. For you, a widow in Sidon. That's Jezebel's home country, the heartland of Baal worship. God sent his prophet into enemy territory to receive provision from a woman who probably worshipped a false god. If God's logic confuses you, good, you're paying attention. When Elijah arrived, he found her at the city gate gathering sticks. She was preparing to make one final meal for herself and her son, then they would die. She had nothing, a handful of flour, a little oil, that was it. And Elijah said something that must have sounded absolutely insane to her. Don't be afraid. Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread. For me, then make something for yourself and your son. In other words, give me your last meal. But then he said this, and this is the promise that changed everything. For this is what the Lord says. The jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land. She obeyed, and the flour didn't run out. Day after day, week after week, month after month, she reached into the jar, and there was always enough. Now here's why this matters. For you, God first provided for Elijah through ravens, unexpected sources. Then God provided through a widow, unlikely people. And both times, the provision didn't come from Elijah's own resources. It came from obedience. It came from going where God said to go and doing what God said to do. The miracle was never about the ravens. It was never about the flour. The miracle was the trust. Then something happened that made no sense at all. The widow's son got sick, and he stopped breathing. She said to Elijah, "What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son?" Grief does that. It makes you question everything, even the miracle you just lived through. But watch what Elijah did. He took the boy, carried him upstairs, laid him on his own bed, and he cried out to God, not with a formula, not with religious confidence, with raw, desperate honesty. "Lord my God, have you brought tragedy even on this widow I am staying with by causing her son to die?" Then he stretched himself out on the boy 3 times and prayed, "Lord my God, let this boy's life return to him." And the Lord heard Elijah's prayer, and the boy's life returned to him, and he opened his eyes. Listen to what the widow said after that. "Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is the truth." She didn't just receive provision, she received faith. God used the drought to bring a pagan widow to belief. He used the flour to sustain her life. He used the death and resurrection of her son to reveal his power. The drought wasn't just about Israel. It was about her. It was about her son. It was about a woman in enemy territory, encountering the one true God, and that is the detail. I promised you at the beginning, the waiting season was never about Elijah's comfort. It was about who God wanted to reach through Elijah's obedience. Maybe you're in your Brook season right now. The provision is drying up. The situation doesn't make sense. You're waiting and nothing seems to be happening. Here's what this story tells you. 1. God commands your provision before you even know you need it. The ravens were already on their way before Elijah got hungry. 2. When one source dries up, it doesn't mean God has left. It means he's redirecting you to something better. 3. Your obedience isn't just about you. Someone else's breakthrough is tied to your faithfulness. You might be the raven in someone else's story right now and not even know it. This is part 1 of the Heaven's Grocery Store series. Stories of how God provides in impossible ways. Next week we're going to Zarephath, the widow's flour jar, the miracle that kept going when everything said it should have stopped. If this story spoke to you today, do 3 things. First, subscribe. We're building something here, and I don't want you to miss what's coming. Second, comment below. What is your Kerith Ravine right now? What season are you waiting in? Let's encourage each other. Third, save this video. Come back to it on the hard days. Sometimes you just need to hear that God sends ravens. So remember those ravens God sent to Elijah, faithful and unexpected. And here's the thing. God's still sending ravens today. Maybe yours is already on the way. Or maybe you're the raven for someone else. Either way, keep watching. Because next week, we're going to Zarephath to see how God's grocery store works when everything says it should be empty. Until then, trust in the one who commands the birds